Hello, everyone. Great to see you all on this beautiful, bright, sunny spring day. For those of you who don't know me, welcome. I'm Angela Ye. I'm the founder of Ye Ideology, a talent strategies consulting firm. We specialize in empowering progressive leaders to advance and sustain thriving careers while they're delivering outsized impact for the companies and the clients that they work with. So whether you're joining me in this live stream on LinkedIn or YouTube, feel free to drop your questions in the chat as soon as you have a thought, and I will address them as soon as they come up. And if you also would like, you can also DM me privately on LinkedIn. Okay. So I wanted to talk today about an interesting pattern that we have been seeing. It's an interesting pattern, career pattern that we've seen for decades, actually. But I really want to talk about how it affects a certain sector, a certain archetype of individual in this space of design strategy and innovation. And I'm talking about design leadership. By the way, this pattern I want to illustrate happens to people if you've heard me talk about this before, the career bell curve that we all go through in all of our lives. I think everyone, for those of us that really care and want to build a career and sustain some kind of career, however it's evolving, that expertise, I think most of us, it's from our 20s to our 70s or 80s. That's the span of this process, right? And I would say that this kind of pattern that I want to talk about affects people at all phases, early, midpoint, halfway point, leadership management, the culmination, the height of someone's career. And you even have, well, and then it's an interesting cause of what's causing someone to their bell curve to drop. And I want to talk about particularly the area of leadership. So if any of you listening to this, whether this may have happened to you or if you've seen friends or people in the industry where this might have happened to them, there's a particular inflection point where I've seen people where they may have had a solid stint at some point in their career. They've had a long duration at a company. They've developed some really powerful work that sometimes takes quite a bit longer. The higher you rise up tend to be in your career, the longer it takes to develop that proof of a concept. But what I find is, I'm going to call this pattern a little bit of a ricochet. So in this pattern, even though someone has had a strong stint somewhere and doing some great work, oftentimes there's that urge, that need, and that desire to want to take it somewhere else to that next scale. And the question here is, how do you then take it to that next level? Where do you find it? And a lot of people, I find, what's an interesting pattern that I didn't realize this initially years ago, but we started to see that we'd see patterns where someone had some great years somewhere at one, two, or even three different companies. But then something happens where the next few steps to management, particularly this is really noticeable for us in management and leadership, where the stints are not as long and where someone is wanting to hold on to those roles and really create space for them to really develop that next seminal project. But for whatever happens, something's not lining up and people are jumping around a little bit. What we find, and sometimes these are, when we delve into and diagnose and read, and when I read someone's history, and we qualify the things that had happened, certainly there's an aspect of certain elements that are external. And everyone that we speak to, they say, I knew where I wanted to go next. I knew what I wanted to do next. And I've, scrutinized this company, interviewed, scrutinized the opportunity, the industry, the culture. And for whatever reason, they land into the opportunity. And for whatever reason, the opportunity doesn't turn out to be what that person really thought that they would be investing in building next, and or in some respects what they were looking to offer, the company didn't really fully understand that full investment of what that would be. There's a variety of other things that compounded happens, but what we find is sometimes people start to come to us after and have come to us to try to resolve this and figure this out. This is a certain type of career advancement challenge and pattern that we notice. There's, by the way, opposite of that, there are people who tend to stay at one company for a long time. Those people tend to say to us, I was looking around, I didn't see anything, or I dabbled or applied for something, nothing really fell through. It wasn't what I wanted, so I just stayed. We'll get into that archetype as well. But when it comes to knowing what you wanted to develop and then moving on to find that opportunity somewhere else to build that initiative again, or a next iteration of that, we find that sometimes people end up pivoting around. And ricochet was one of the things that one of my clients had said, I felt like in retrospect, after 3 steps, and I have someone else who'd gone 5 steps after that one seminal project. And this one gentleman said, I felt like when I look back, I feel like I was ricocheting around, not really realizing where I could, deliver that impact that I know I can deliver. Um, it's an interesting pattern. And here are the ramifications of this. When you get to leadership, it's harder and harder to retain those roles. It's harder and harder to take that unique body of knowledge that you've developed to really evolve it to, think about it. You've cultivated all this expertise over all these years. And as you rise up in your career, by the way, when I say rise up, it's not necessarily within a company, could be pivoting to run your own consultancy. That same pattern can happen, or ricocheting situation can happen if you don't have the clarity of what it is that you're looking to build next, how to build it next, and where those opportunities exist, how to qualify those opportunities before you land in them. One gentleman that we worked with had been moving around quite a bit, but he wasn't really fully understanding. And here's a couple of things that the ramifications of this. Each stint I've seen this happen so many times. Each stint starts to get smaller and smaller. It's harder to understand, where am I supposed to build this higher level of knowledge? And when it gets harder to find it, people do then start to doubt, is my body of work, this that I've cultivated to this point, is it still needed by this industry? And here's the thing, more often than not, when I work with someone and we delve in to read someone's expertise, there are multiple places, multiple ways that expertise is needed by businesses around the world. But not knowing how to see where those opportunities are, not knowing how to qualify and really germinate that opportunity to ensure that it's right, those are the final steps that I think makes this really hard. But anyway, today I just want to talk about a particular pattern. I hear a lot of discussion about leadership lately, and I will say that there are absolutely, at that highest, I would say from here on up to the height of someone's career, there's a different inflection point. There's different types of challenges, the same types of challenges that affect people at early stages in their career, to midpoint, to that senior designer ceiling, to leadership, but it affects us in a very different way at that high point of leadership. All right. If you find that, you looking back at your history, or if anyone you're talking to, a friend of yours, if you're finding that while you may have had a nice long stint somewhere, and you did want to stick a landing and really stay somewhere to really deliver some incredible impact, deliver some value, but you're finding it harder and harder to do so, chances are it might be time to not just look outward to see what's out there, but chances are it's time for you to look inward to understand, what is it that you're truly building? What is it that's unique to the way you deliver innovation, strategy, design, your style, transferable skills. Everybody talks about it. In fact, transferable skills from my book, it is very unique to you and who you are. And you've got to understand how to qualify those things. I will just say that there are a lot of stories of people that we've worked with over the years. Every sector. There is a gentleman that I know that was in the publishing industry, and we knew him really well. He had done a lot of great work there, wanted to pivot into content strategy. And, years later, we would see him at these industry events and felt that he was doing well. But then when we came down to privately having that conversation, we realized that this person wasn't landing in opportunities that he wanted to land. And it was causing his career to actually plateau, and plateauing does not last forever, right? We look at physics. The goal is to continue to rise, but if you can't and you're plateauing, what happens is it starts to decline. We were able to help that person rise up and raise understand really what was his unique body of expertise that he was cultivating, what that translated in this world of content strategy. And like many of the clients that we work with, ever after that point, he understood exactly where to land. And I will tell you, a big piece of this is not falling in love with something just at first glance. And I think that that can happen when any of you, this isn't just at anybody at any height, but when it's been a certain amount of time since you've been in the industry doing some work, having a role of purpose, you just want to get back in and do that good work. And that's one thing I want to warn people of, is just you do not want to just out of knee-jerk reaction say, I have to take this, right? I mean, look, there's times where you do have to do that, but you have to understand what you're walking into and why. And I think a lot of people, I find, end up assuming that it's going to be an amazing opportunity when they don't understand how to walk into this eyes wide open, right? So it's just an interesting trend, and a pattern. If any of you have found that you yourself, maybe you've had there's jumping around. I've seen people who've done that, but let's talk about those that have been on a certain track, had delivered some great work and some great value, some great results and impact. But then as you pivoted onto that next to find that next place to deliver that next result, if you're finding that you are moving along and you're not necessarily landing in the right place to deliver that next seminal piece of work, I invite you to have a call. Let's have a career strategy call and let's talk about what it is that you just really need to do to get to that next place and stick that landing. Okay. I will tell you that right now, this world needs innovative, strategic design expertise more than ever, but they do not know how to see you. And it does take you knowing how to own your half of the engagement. And that's when you do this, this is when people, companies, clients, employers, customers recognize you better. When you know how to hold on to your side of that engagement, that dialogue. Okay. So that's a quick thought for you. See if that resonates for any of you, particularly those at high points of leadership where, it's now, where am I landing? Where do I want to really continue to develop this result? And I will tell you, it does get harder as you rise up, particularly in those final stages of leadership right here. Okay. Because this is the point. This is the point where you want more, you have higher standards, and guess what? Every company, they want more from you. They have higher standards. So that Venn diagram gets a little bit harder, but we can show you how to do it. And we've had so many people where we've helped people, once they understood this, people climb higher, faster, and just continually evolve upwards rather than, to this gentleman's point, feeling like they're ricocheting around. Okay. I hope that this makes sense. That's it. Feedback. I would love to hear. If, for all of you, I want to know, does this make sense? Does this, what we share, the data points and the patterns that we've seen affect this industry? You are the community that cares. You're the 20% that care more than 80% of those in a company oftentimes, and see and understand more than most. If this matters to you, the things that we talk about, if this is hitting home, I ask you, share it with others, like, subscribe. It helps others. It helps the algorithm. Share this with others that really need to understand this as well. All right. Have a great day. Enjoy. Bye.